All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join and listen in. So, with us today, we are honored to have Tyler on the call. And Tyler is one of the key players we work with at Agtrust Bank at the moment. And this is a very great opportunity for us because we see them as solid strategic partners. With me also, I have my partner, Femi Universe Consulting, and Shem also on the call. Hi, Shem. So we want to we're going to start with Tyler and say, hey, Tyler, if you don't mind, introduce yourself and we'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Again, so my name is Tyler Rosser. I'm the credit office president of the Agtrust Farm Credit Sherman branch office. Been with the association for a little over 8 years, and really what we do and what we specialize in is financing farm and ranch tracts in North Texas, Central Texas, some of Northeast Texas. We head out west towards Abilene, Sweetwater, and then in the state of New Mexico. As an association, Agtrust has been around since the early 1900s when we were created via the Farm Credit Act, I believe in 1916, but don't quote me on that. And again, kind of our specialty, 10 acres plus, farm and ranch tracts, financing cattle purchases, your true production agricultural operators, so the guys who are farming corn, raising cattle, that sort of stuff. And then we can occasionally do smaller tracts, 2+ acres we kind of say fits what we call a rural home site loan at times. If it's a small tract out in the country that someone may want to build on in the future, sometimes we can fit those into our program as well.
Got it. So, one of the popular questions, Tyler, our community has asked is, why AG? What makes Agtrust stand out among other lenders or other banks? So why AG?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. As a farm credit association, first off is we're customer owned. So we're a customer owned cooperative. We pay back a patronage dividend to our customers. Typically what that means is each year they're going to get somewhere around 1%, one and some change of their interest back each year. So, on a 20-year loan, that might be just a little bit over one payment. And if, let's say your rate today was 6%, which is a little lower than where it is, unfortunately, you'll get a check back at the end of the year where it's more like you paid us 5%. So that's a really big asset. Second, our terms, we have the ability to offer long-term fixed rates. So we can do a 20 or a 30-year fixed rate on raw land, which is something your typical bank or mortgage company just generally isn't going to do. There may be times where their finances allow them to be really aggressive to try and compete with us, but generally they have a hard time doing that. Whereas we could do it year round, every year, year in, year out. Farm credit's always lending. Our doors are always open. And because of our GSE status, we have a very consistent, stream of finance. So we're not having to worry about deposits and some of the stuff that your typical commercial banks in the areas may, right? Where they may make too many land loans in a year, so they have to wait for their deposits to catch up. So we're always lending, and we have those long-term fixed rates where if we get into a low rate environment like we did in 2020, which we may not get that low again, but 2021, where those rates start to pull back and you want to lock in for 20 or 30 years because that's kind of your cup of tea and maybe you're more risk averse. That's something we offer that most of our competitors don't.
Okay, that's great. Any other thing you think we should know in terms of why AG would be a good fit for our community?
Yeah, so high level kind of terms. If someone finds a 10-acre parcel that they want to buy and hold on to, maybe cut some hay, run some cattle, and maybe one day build a home on. Kind of anything that size or over are standard terms, for a strong borrower, we'll say. Somewhere around 20% down, you'll typically be looking at that 20-year term. There is room to flex each way, but kind of that's our standard offering on an ag tract. If you're looking at one of those home site loans under 10 acres, you're more likely going to be at a 15-year loan term. So payment may be just a little higher, but you'll get it paid off quite a bit quicker and have obviously less interest payment as well. And then kind of additional things, additional services we offer, because all we do is lend on land, right? That's kind of our specialty. We have in-house appraisers who all they do is appraise rural property, right? Pretty much anywhere in the state, we either have an appraiser on staff or an appraiser contact we can work with and trust that, we know the markets.
Got it. What about for folks that decide that they want to do like a joint application? Any recommendation or comments around that?
Yeah, so we have no problem with, partnerships, two friends, two families going in to buy property together using an LLC. We like to not have, too many people on a very small piece of property because we want it to feel like it's a family property, not really, an investment maybe. So typically if we have, roughly 10 acres a person, that's what we would like to see because that way each kind of person has their own 10-acre tract they can operate, and most county appraisers appraisal districts will call an ag tract 10 acres or more. So if each person has that 10 acres, if they were to cut it up one day, well, there you go. It's very easy to kind of show that and tell that story of these are people operating their own parcels, even if they bought it together to get a better deal.
Got it. So if somebody says, okay, I like what I hear from AG and I'm ready to go with you, what are some of the key requirements they need to, submit to you? What would they need to do? What are the next steps typically?
Yeah, so the first thing is, once you have a realtor you're working with, or you're looking at some properties, thinking you're getting ready to make an offer, the easiest thing to do is just get a pre-qualification letter in place. That way, your realtor, your buying agent knows, okay, this individual likely to be qualified. I'm not wasting my time driving all over the countryside showing them properties. And that's really easy for us. It doesn't require a credit check. It doesn't require any financials. Really, we just need some high-level information from the customer, roughly how much income they make each year, what they think their credit score is, do they have the ability to put 20% down on the property that they're looking at? And we get some of that information. We can produce a pre-qualification letter that just says, hey, based on what this borrower has told us, we believe we can approve them. Obviously, it's subject to a credit check, financials being received, but that's the easiest way to get started. And that's typically a 1 or 2 hour turnaround from when we first get in touch.
Okay, that's great. So 1 or 2 hours turnaround. Okay, that's great. And it's very consistent with what you all have done with us in the past too. That's great. So the other thing is, what do you say to somebody that says my credit is not super awesome at the moment? What is the minimum credit for application for those land loans?
Yeah, so our minimum credit score prior to exception is 608. If it's under that, we're happy to still visit with you, see if we can figure out maybe why that credit score is lower, see if we have the opportunity to still work together. But typically, if it's below that, it is going to be quite a bit harder. We may have to request some exceptions if we wanted to try and do business together.
Got it. Excellent. Let me pause. Shem, if you have 1 or 2 questions for Tyler, that's great. And but I think you answered virtually all clients' common frequency.
Thanks a lot, Tyler and Brother Kim. Thank you for having me on board. And it's been nice working with you, Tyler. We have done this for a long time.
Yeah.
And just for the sake of other people that might be coming in who might not be, you might be a little bit new in the system. Can you talk on, usually from the lender perspective, how much time you need to close a file? And if somebody needs to do an individual application and later they need to change it to LLC, what might be maybe the process? And then another thing is what areas do you do your coverages? Mm-hmm. And lastly, if you lock somebody in and maybe that the interest comes down and they need to refi, what can they do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll kind of start with the first one with kind of timeline, right? So borrower finds a piece of property they like, they come to us and they get a pre-qualification. Typically, once they have a contract signed, that's when we'll take an application. It's a really easy online application. Most of them are effectively an auto approval once we get your information. And then we start on, the final approval and an appraisal. We get all that ordered. Pretty much up until, call it a week to 2 weeks before closing, we have no problem making changes, adding a borrower, adding the LLC in, as long as that LLC has an EIN, an operating agreement, and then of course their certificate of formation. Those are the documents we need to review. We get that a week to 2 weeks before close. That's no problem making that change midstream. Total timing, typically 30 days is ample time for us to close from the minute we get that application. What sometimes gets us in trouble if someone gets a contract, they sit on that contract for 2 weeks and they call us and say, oh, by the way, I want to do financing. And then there's 2 weeks to close. So everyone's kind of rushing. So typically 30 days from application is really easy to close. To your second question about kind of interest rate changes. So this happens a lot and it's something we're able to offer continuously, and it's an interest rate conversion is what we call it. And it's effectively an in-house note modification. What that is let's say you came to me for a loan today and you locked in a 20-year fixed rate and it was high 7%. So let's say 7.8%. And in 2 years, the Federal Reserve has offered some rate cuts, maybe the bond yields curve has inverted or reinverted, uninverted, and that new rate is 6%. Okay. Well, if we have the ability, if the borrower is performing, we can drop their rate down to the market for what's typically just a flat rate fee, depending on really how much they're saving. And you can kind of do that as often as it makes sense for you. Most of the time, those customers are doing one every 2 or 3 years, just as those rates kind of make their big cycles. But it's something we offer, and it's not a full refinance. So again, if that customer's performing, we're not pulling their credit. We're not having to go to the title company for any closings. It's just one electronic signature, and you get your rate change. What was the third question, Shem? I think I got 2 of them covered.
The other question is the area of your coverages.
Yeah, so Agtrust Farm Credit, we have kind of unique territories, and within Farm Credit, when we started in the early 1900s, there was 2 offices in every county, and over the years, to be more efficient, those merged up. So now we have these chartered territories, and if you go to our website, it's agtrustaca.com. You can see an easy chart and kind of map of our location. But for those of us around DFW, kind of high level, Grayson County, Cook County, Fannin County, Tarrant County, Denton County, and then all the Red River counties going out east, Lamar County, Delta County, Red River County. We service all those, and I handle most of those personally. If a borrower lives in one of our counties, we can finance property for them anywhere in the state. So example, if a customer lives here in Sherman and they wanted to buy property in Oklahoma, they wanted to buy property in South Texas, somewhere Houston or South, we can help them there. So anytime there's a question on a property you're interested, don't hesitate to contact us. We can let you know pretty quickly if it's an area we service. And if for some reason we can't, we can either go to our colleagues in the farm credit world and ask for permission or concurrence, as we call it, or we can refer them to you and just let them take care of you, and know that they'll do a good job as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tyler. That was great. Femi, I don't know if you have any question for Tyler also before we
Hey, yeah, I think I have a couple. Hi, Tyler. This is Femi.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to meet you. Face, I see your face. My first question is there generally a difference between buying land as an LLC or as an individual? And is there a huge disparity in the interest rate?
No. So pretty much the same process for either. You're not really going to see much of a difference from us. Sometimes we have to charge a little bit of an additional fee, just depending on the legal costs associated with the review, but it's a couple $100s, nothing significant. Interest rates don't really change. Those are really going to be based on kind of where our market is at that point, as well as just the strength of the customer's financials, right? If the customer has the ability to buy a property with cash, they probably have access to a little lower rate than those who don't, or maybe those with a low credit score who have a different credit history. So, that interest rate's very mainly dependent on the market, though. We work off kind of a cost of funds from our funding bank, and as that 10-year treasury bond is what I typically tell people, it's kind of, if it follows that the most, you kind of see where that 10-year treasury bond yield is, you'll have a good estimate of what's happening to our rates each day.
So unlike mortgage, housing mortgage, for land, you have properties that you rent and you use that income while you're applying for mortgage. If you have a land that generates income, kind of some sort of income, can you use those income as part of your mortgage, your loan application for
as long as we can track it, right? If it's a cash rent from someone, they're just paying you cash to run cattle or cut hay, obviously we can't track that. If it's not reported to the IRS, right, we can't include it. But if it's reported on a Schedule F or a Schedule C on your tax return, absolutely it's includable.
That's all I got.
All right. Thank you so much, Tyler. And it's been a delight to have you on board. And, one thing I would say to our community is that, this bank has been very, very effective for us. They are very speed and the value they provide to us. They specialize in agri banking and they know it a lot. Land is what they focus on. And, Tyler has been a strategic partner for us. So we're excited, and please reach out and let's partner with them as much as we can. That's all we got. Thank you so much, Tyler. Any parting words?
That's all I've got. You can reach us anytime. I'm sure I can have my cell phone number up there, as well as our office here in Sherman. Sure. Feel free to give us a call anytime. We'll help as best we can.
Can I add one more thing? What if somebody say they don't have enough down payment? Do you accept things like a gift? What might be required if it comes to that? Something like that. Can you talk on that?
Yeah, so there are times where we can accept a borrower showing that they're receiving a gift down payment from a family member. In those cases, it is case by case, but in those cases, if we can make that work, we just typically need kind of a gift letter certifying it from that family member that it is truly a gift to them. There's no repayment on it. And in those cases, we get that document signed and we're good to go. So it is case by case. As long as we cover that up front, then typically we're good to go.
Excellent. All right. Any other question, folks?
Two more questions.
Go ahead, Jim.
So if somebody, I know you always give dividends back. That is why sometimes, even though the interest might look a little bit higher, do you know when they can expect the dividends back once they, is it like end of the year? Is it like maybe the first quarter? And then there might be some people who say, I'm a foreigner, if I need to buy land, do they have that opportunity? And lastly, if somebody buys like 22 acres and they want to take care, they want to sell like 11 acres, would that be a problem?
Yeah, so the first point, the patronage dividend, those typically come out in March or April of each year. There's some years our accounting team can work magic and get those out in February, but typically March or April is pretty safe. Those come in the form of a check for the prior year. So you buy a property, today, middle of June, your first check would still come next March, and it would be for half the year, right? So it's prorated for how long you have the property, and you do still get one after you pay off the property. So if you had a property, a loan right now, you sold that property in June, next year you'd still get a check for the closeout of your loan for that last, 6 months. So that's when they typically get those. Remind me the second question, Jim. Apologies.
The other question was if somebody is maybe is like a foreign investor, do you deal with those ones? And lastly, the one I wanted to ask is if somebody buys like 22 acres, they say they want to sell 11 acres, would that be a problem?
Yeah, so to the selling property part, typically no. Partial releases, what we call those, are handled on a case-by-case basis. We have to verify, the property isn't substantially changing. Our appraisal value is still in really good shape. Determine how much pay down might be required from that. So it is case-by-case, but typically we're able to get those pushed through. If someone wants to lower their mortgage payment, they want to pay down some debt, selling off pieces of property can make a lot of sense for them, right? To the foreign investors question, that's kind of also a case-by-case basis. I know kind of typically our standard is a borrower being a U.S. citizen or on a permanent visa for us to be able to include them in the cash flow analysis to verify that we can project on that income. Them being a member of an LLC is sometimes possible as well, depending on the structure of that LLC's operating agreement. So again, I don't like just kind of waffling on it and saying everything's a case-by-case basis, but that is a situation where it is.
And Tyler, just a scenario. So like you mentioned, a working visa. So if we have a client that has a working visa, they pay their taxes, everything is trackable. These are PhD title holders. They have good cash flow. They're in the system. Are they also eligible for such loans?
They can be. Those are sometimes harder for us to get pushed through and get approved because depending on where they're at, kind of in that work visa process. A lot of times what we do is we kick that to an attorney to kind of help them, who knows more about that process than I do, frankly. Know where they are. If they're really, really close to maybe getting that permanent residency card, we may be comfortable going ahead and rolling and making that note. If they're very, very early in that process and we're maybe 4 or 5 years out, maybe we can still make a loan, but it's on much reduced terms. So it's, again, kind of one of those case-by-case deals.
All right, case-by-case. Okay, got it.
So I want to piggyback on what Tyler said, and I have a question. So as a foreigner, if you have a foreign, if there's an LLC, so it makes it a little bit easier to go through with the loan process, right? Clearly get what you meant in that statement. Yeah,
so we still need to be able to easily project cash flow on eligible borrowers. That's the most important part. From there, if we have other individuals on an LLC, again, it'll look at the operating agreement, depending on the structure of the entity, and kind of have our legal team make a determination of if that's an eligible borrower or not.
Okay. Also for veterans, do you have any program for veterans?
Yeah, within Farm Credit, there's not a specific program like there is the VA loans, through your traditional mortgage lenders. We do have the ability to be aggressive on terms to borrowers that we want to work with, but there is not a specific program in place, unfortunately.
Okay, Tyler, one more last question. Because I know it's a farm egg credit, if somebody wants to buy like machineries and all that, do you give those loans too?
So we can, yeah. If someone's buying ag equipment that they plan to operate on their property, we can definitely assist with that. The terms, match more of what a traditional equipment or vehicle note might be, 4, 5, or 6 years on a term. A lot of the time, if they're buying from a dealership, right now, especially those dealer rates are going to be quite a bit more aggressive than what we can be. But if it's used equipment, we can definitely be in the market and be pretty competitive.
I think I'm very good, and thank you, Tyler and Kim and Protofemi. This is very informative, and it's been good in cooperation of what we've been doing with your bank, and you have really helped our community.
Thanks all for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for taking
time, Tyler.
Y'all have a great day.
All right. Take care.